Okay, hi. This is not going to be the typical bubbly intro to one of my videos. That will happen in a moment. But for right now, for just a few seconds, I want to talk about something that's been weighing so heavily on my mind, and that's the tragedy that happened in Uvalde a couple weeks ago. As a former educator in Texas, I taught high school for 5 years, and as a new parent, I have a 10-month-old daughter just a few bedrooms away. I cannot fathom what those families are going through. It is unimaginable to me, but I can't even say that this tragedy was unimaginable because they happen so frequently at this point and we're all so numb to it. But I've always believed that if you have a platform, no matter how small, you should probably try to use it for good once in a while. So in an effort to use my platform for good and give back just a little bit, I'm going to be dedicating 50% of all the revenue that this video generates in the first 31 days to the Uvalde Survivor Fund, and then 50% to Texas Gun Sense, which is just a nonprofit aimed at reducing gun violence in Texas. I think it's the least I can do. I will leave the links to both of the funds that I am donating to in the description down below. If you have the means to contribute and you would like to, please do so. Also, please disregard the massive tone shift between this and then the intro to the video. They were recorded at wildly different times. Okay, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Now here's the video that you came for. All right, it's time. This will be my attempt to do a hardcore Nuzlocke with only shiny ghost types in Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. Ghost is one of my favorite types in the entire game, up there with grass and poison, so I am super pumped for this one. Hello, for the uninitiated, my name is Vivid and I've made it my goal to do a hardcore Nuzlocke with every single type in the game. But also, I hate my free time, so I'm taking on this massive challenge using only shiny Pokemon. That's right, I will have to shiny hunt for every encounter I get. You should know that I've bumped up the shiny odds a bit because I want to finish this game before Pokemon Black and White 3 are announced. I personally think Ghost is one of the better offensive types in the game, and being immune to both normal and fighting is great for a hardcore Nuzlocke, but don't let that fool you. The rules for this run are intense. In addition to the standard Nuzlocke rules, I must play the game on set mode, I'm not allowed to use any items in battle other than held items, and I can't overlevel my Pokemon past the next gym leader's ace. With these rules and the abundance of dark types and dark type coverage moves we face in this generation, things could get dicey quickly. Before we get into it, please consider subscribing if you enjoy these challenges. I would love to hit 50k by my birthday, which is coming up soon on July 31st, so help me get there if you enjoy what I do. Also, leave a like on this video if you appreciate the effort that goes into these runs, and let me know your favorite ghost type in the comments down below. Mine is 1000% Sableye. I love how creepy it looks, the way it just has gems embedded in its body, and it was the mascot for my draft league team, the South Texas Sableyes. It's just an S-tier Pokemon. Okay, with that out of the way, let's do this. Starting off, there are clearly no spooky boys for us to pick, and none of the available starters are particularly good or bad matchups for us, so I just pick randomly and end up with Torchic. This was my first mistake. It doesn't really matter in the long run since I don't have my real starter yet, but I just kept losing to May. The first battle you have with May, the easy introductory battle of the game, yeah, I lost it and I don't remember how many times I had to redo it, but I wasn't willing to level this Torchic up because I won't ever use it, so I just kept smashing into her until we finally got a battle with a crit and a burn for the win. Moments like this make me rage in this game. But you know what game doesn't make me rage? Oh, he's gonna do it, isn't he? That's right, Raid Shadow Legends. Let me thank them real quick. Let me level with you for a minute. If you're watching this video, I already know that you love strategy RPGs that involve building a team and theory crafting the best strategy to get through any situation. So Raid Shadow Legends, the sponsor of today's video, is the game for you. What I love about Raid Shadow Legends is the huge number of champions keeps me coming back and actually playing the game, but the visuals and storytelling in the game are also top notch. All great games should have some insane challenge near the end of them to really test your skill, and for Raid, that content is the Doom Tower. It's a multi-level prison containing vile bosses that will actually require you to master specific mechanics just to beat them. It will really put you through the ringer. There's special events going on all month in Raid, including the Path of Light, where you can explore 3 different paths to get some epic loot. Raid's also currently running a special Deliana chase event where you can get your hands on Deliana, one of the strongest support champions in the game, just by logging in and playing for 7 days between now and July 20th. Now is 100% the best time to get started in Raid, and if you're a new player and you click my custom link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen, you'll unlock special bonuses worth $30. I mean, these gifts include 1 free epic champion Tyrell, 200,000 silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 ancient shard, so you can start summoning awesome champions as soon as you get in the game. And the gifts don't end there either, because new players can also simply enter promo code MyDeliana once you're in the game to get everything. 50 XP brews so that you can already max out Deliana's level, and a ton of silver. So what are you waiting for? Use my custom link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen and I will see you in game. Thank you once again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video and helping me continue to make content. Now that we can finally move on, we do all the intro nonsense of meeting our dad and helping out Wally, and then we make our way into Petalburg Woods where we can find our very first encounter of the run. Now, you're probably wondering what ghost I could possibly be hunting for at this point in the game, and honestly, I don't blame you. If I was using the standard encounter table for these games, I wouldn't be able to get an actual ghost on my team until after the second gym. But I have a clever solution, and I'm sure some of you might have guessed this: the National Pokedex. Normally you wouldn't have access to this until the post game, but thankfully my grandma works for Sony and sent me a special copy of Alpha Sapphire where I have the National Dex at the very start. So I can use the Dex Nav function to find encounters I wouldn't normally be able to, and in Petalburg Woods, you can Dex Nav hunt for a Phantump. With the Dex Nav method, you can also see some information about what you're hunting before you actually encounter it, and after some quick theory crafting, I realize I most likely won't be able to make it out of the early game without hunting for a very specific Phantump. So finally, after hours of scaring away every Phantump without its hidden ability and well over 100 encounters, I finally found a white spooky little tree boy with the ability Harvest. I catch him and name him Ryuk. As always, my nicknames have a theme and it's up to you to guess it, but I'm sure this one already gave it away for most of you. It was just so juicy I couldn't pass it up. Now I'm sure some of you are curious as to why Harvest is important, and it's because it will let Ryuk regrow or harvest any berry he consumes at the end of the turn 40% of the time. In this context, it just gives him more effective health and will let him solo certain trainers much more easily. Now that I have my actual starter, I clear the Aqua Grunt in the forest, do some grinding, and it's already time for the first gym challenge. But before I go in, I want to consult a ghost expert just to make sure that this challenge is even viable.
What's up?
Okay, so Grim, I'm doing a hardcore Nuzlocke with only ghosts, and I know your whole thing is, being grim and spooky or whatever. So I was wondering if you have any advice on making it through the early game of Alpha Sapphire with only ghosts.
So you're doing a Nuzlocke, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just don't let your Pokemon die. It's not really that hard, man.
Bro, how are they gonna die? They're already dead. They're ghosts.
All right, you know what, man? I'm in the middle of editing. I don't have time for this. Just watch out for sharks, all right?
Watch out for sharks?
You know what? I'm sure it's fine. Definitely go check Grim out though. Even if he didn't really help, he's been pumping out a ton of content on TikTok and YouTube, and it is top tier. I'll put his links in the description down below. So, Ryuk will have to do this alone, but since we have Harvest and Oran Berries, I think we have the tools to get through. I challenge Roxanne and send Ryuk out into her lead Geodude, and on the first turn, I set up an Ingrain to give me a little bit of residual healing each turn, and the Geodude goes for a Rock Tomb. On the next turn, I use Confuse Ray to lower the Rock's chance of attacking, and from here, I'll spare you the play-by-play since it's pretty monotonous. The too long didn't read version is I start setting up growths to raise my attack, reconfuse the Geodude when it snaps out of confusion, and consume and harvest my Oran Berry several times while we go back and forth. Eventually, we're left with just 10 HP, meaning I need Geodude to hit itself in confusion or I risk getting KO'd, and it does, allowing me to take it out with an Astonish. Roxanne then sends out her Nose Pass, so I confuse it on the first turn hoping I can survive an attack, but the Big Nose Rock just goes for Harden. At the end of the turn, Ryuk harvests and eats his berry, taking him to a comfortable 24 HP, and over the next several turns, the Nose Pass luckily just keeps hitting itself in confusion or going for Hardens while I'm able to pick it off with boosted Astonishes. Wow, that battle was actually incredibly stressful. I'm pretty sure Ryuk ended up eating 5 Oran Berries during that battle, meaning I needed around 50 points of extra health plus however much extra healing I got from Ingrain just to make it through the first gym, which is insane. I 100% had to have Harvest to win this battle, so good theory crafting on my part. With the first badge under my belt, I can go grab another encounter, and honestly, I could have done this before the Roxanne fight, but it would have been exciting exceedingly useless. So I run around in the grass north of Rustboro City until I encounter one of the most controversial Pokemon in Nuzlocke culture, and it shines. It's this thing, a Nincada. I catch her and name her Rem. A few things before anyone sounds off in the comments about how this isn't a ghost. 1, it evolves into a ghost, so the rules I use make it okay. 2, I cannot get through the next part of the game without it. I don't unlock my next proper ghost encounter until after the second gym, the Aqua Museum fight, and a really hard rival fight against May. Not only could Ryuk not solo all of that, I would very quickly go over the level cap. As for how busted Shedinja is, I'll address that later. Now we have to go save an old man's Pico de Gallo to progress the story, and this is one of the fights that would have been impossible without Rem. It doesn't matter how many times Ryuk can harvest an Oranberry, we're almost never 1v1ing this dude's Poochyena since it can easily two-shot me. But with Rem, the fight's actually super easy. I return the salsa to the old man, and now he'll let me ride on his boat. Before I do, I go see this incredibly important businessman, and I've played through this game a ton, but I never knew he was religious? Praise Lord Helix. Now we can take up that old man on his offer for a boat ride, and we can just immediately take on the next gym when we get to Dewford Town. Brawly can sometimes be difficult, but he only has 2 Pokemon, and only one of them can even touch Ryuk, so I'm feeling pretty confident. I challenge him and lead off with my Ghost Tree into his Machop, which is the Pokemon that can't touch me. I start with Confuse Ray, predicting a switch, since the AI will sometimes do that when it has 0 moves to hit you offensively with, and I call it right. I confuse the incoming Makuhita, and on the next turn, I set up an Ingrain as the little sumo guy hits himself in confusion. This Pokemon has bulk up and knock off, so it can actually be pretty threatening, but on the next turn it just uses Sand Attack, and on the following turn I flinch it into the red. Brawly heals it on the next turn while I keep chipping away with Astonishes, but then Makuhita starts setting up bulk ups, which is scary. So I confuse it again and it hits itself in confusion down to the red, letting me murk it with one final boo on the following turn. From here, Brawly just has Machop, so I claim its soul at my own pace since all it can do is wish it could hit me. Easy fight for the second badge. Now we have a lot of story to get through before I unlock my next encounter, but it starts with me delivering a letter from the Lord Helix follower to this incredibly attractive man in a cave. You would think he could just call him, especially since it turns out that he's his son, but the fact that it had to be a letter makes me believe that there is something in this letter that he doesn't want traced. He wants to deliver this information in a method that can't be tracked. Perhaps this information is even pertaining to the Church of Helix itself. It could be a conspiracy, the likes of which we've never seen in the Hoenn region. This could go all the way to the top and shatter our reality as we know it. It could be catastrophic. Anyway, moving on. In Slateport City, I have to charge up some Aqua Grunts in the museum, and I just remembered that in my last run of Alpha Sapphire, I called them piss babies since they're worried about liquid and they whine a ton. So we're moving forward with that. This is another fight that would be impossible without Rem, but with her, we get through both of the piss babies pretty easily. Once we win, Blue Jack Sparrow shows up to call his own men simps and talk about the ocean or something. Pretty chill dude, honestly. Now, remember how I said none of these fights would be possible without Rem? Well, I lied. I did the math on the upcoming May fight, and even with Rem, it's still impossible since her Slugma knows Incinerate, which is its strongest move, so the one it's most likely to click, and it will burn up any berries I'm holding, nullifying my harvest strats. I'm starting to think the run is dead here, but then I remember Phantump is a trait evolution, which works out fantastically for me in this moment. A quick back and forth and my Phantump evolves into Trevenant, giving itself a massive stat boost. I could have technically done this at the very beginning of the game, but I didn't want to trivialize the first few gyms. With Ryuk now in his final form, I challenge May. And here's the thing, even with a fully evolved Pokemon, this stupid slug can still be problematic. So since May leads with Shroomish, I abuse that and set up Hone Claws just to make the fight a little easier. If Phantump had access to this move, I wouldn't have even needed to evolve him yet, but he doesn't, so I did. I get enough attack boosts to one-shot the slug, and in doing so, I end up one-shotting her entire team. And all I have to say is, slug my nuts, May. You did this to yourself. After the battle, Rem evolves into not Shedinja, but we also get a Shedinja in our party. Now, I know a ton of people are probably asking if I'm going to abuse Shedinja in this run and have it sweep through everything without being touched. And to answer your question, no. Not because I feel like I'm above that at all, I would 100% do that if I could, but because Shedinja is dog water for basically this entire run. Just go look at the gym leaders in this region. Every single one of them has a very easy way way to absolutely dumpster her. She was caught to absorb experience and help out with some early fights, and that's about it, and for that, we can kind of half salute her. Now that we have access to Mauville City, I can finally grab the Mach Bike, head back to Dewford Town, go into the Granite Cave, and start looking for an actually usable encounter. This one takes what feels like my entire life, because I employed a similar strategy to my Phantom hunt, only encountering Sableyes with their hidden ability and the egg move Recover, because that is an insanely strong combination, but eventually I found this absolute gem of a Pokemon, pun intended. 144 encounters might not seem like a ton, but Dexnav chaining in a cave is a nightmare, and on top of that, always scaring away any encounter that didn't meet my requirements just made this entire hunt such a grind. Anyway, I catch him and name him Light, and I am stoked. Sableye is tied for my favorite Pokemon of all time with Porygon, and any run where I get to use it is 1,000 times better. With Light and Ryuk at the level cap, I decide it's time to challenge Watson. I only have 2 real Pokemon since Rim can't really do anything here, so this could get pretty dicey. I lead off with Ryuk into Watson's Magnemite, and on the first turn I set up a Hone Claws while the Magnets just hit me with a Thunder Wave, triggering my Cherry Berry, curing the paralysis. On the next turn I drop the Magnet to 1 HP with a Bulldoze, while it just goes for another Thunder Wave paralyzing me, but at the end of the turn I harvest and eat my Cherry Berry to cure myself. Solid. Watson plays around with healing his Magnets for a while to see if that will help his game plan, but eventually I just body bag the tiny Magnet, and from here, the rest of his team is one-shot from Bulldozes, making this an incredibly easy third badge for the Spooky Boys. Harvest is just such a dope ability, and planning strategies around it is also super fun. The map opens up a little bit with the third badge, and I can go find my next encounter on Route 114 in a Mischievous. This hunt goes 110% smoother than my last 2 since I'm not looking for any specific ability or move, and we managed to find the shiny in just 67 encounters. Almost nice. I catch her and name her Misa. Mischievous is also one of my favorite Pokemon, so this run is really just cementing to me how many ghost types I love. After catching Misa, I have a run-in with the Piss Babies at Meteor Falls where they have kidnapped some nerd, and it's my job to save him. Aqua Admin Shelly's team is actually kind of terrifying for me since she has a Mightyena and a Carvana, but Ryuk has learned Leech Seed, and Light is neutral to dark type attacks thanks to his typing, so I'm able to pick up the win by stalling out with Leech Seed Chip and Prankster Recovery on Light. I know, hold your applause, this was a very heroic way to win the battle. After smashing Shelly, this other nerd with red hair shows up, and I guess he's the leader of the rival gang. They mention their plans, which involve going to an active volcano, and since this is a Pokemon game, I have to go stop them, since sending a child into an active volcano to combat an evil team is basically par for the course here. I then make my way to the volcano where they're actively participating in dogfights. Not a good look. I beat down some lower level Piss Babies, and now I have to face off against Blue Jack Sparrow for the first time. His team has both a Mightyena and a Sharpedo on it, so this fight looks terrifying on paper, but I have a cheeky plan. I challenge him and lead off with Light into his Wolf Hyena hybrid, and on turn 1, I just fake out for some chip damage. On the next turn, I go for a power-up punch, just knowing the dog is gonna swagger me, but it doesn't. It roars me out into Ryuk instead, which is not how I planned this to go. I stay in and get confused by swagger, but I break through and manage to set up a Leech Seed, which will give me some reliable recovery and chip damage. On the next turn, I switch into Light, who immediately gets roared out into my chicken starter who I've been using for HMs? Awkward. I switch back into Light, and the exact same turn happens again. Double awkward. Well, third time's the charm, so I switch back into Light a third time, and this time the dog finally goes for a swagger on Light, raising his attack stat 2 stages, and thanks to my Berry, not confusing me. A power-up punch bodies the puppy on the next turn, forcing him out into his ace Sharpedo, and Light is clearly very calculated since he dodges a Screech from the shark and then guts the fish with a single punch. Golbat is his last Pokemon, and it lands a Confuse Ray on Light in a sad attempt to not perish, but he breaks through and jots Golbat's name down on his notebook with one single Rock Tomb. I was planning on Light getting swaggered on turn 1, but this works too. As he's leaving, the Team Aqua leader says something about this being the day I will always remember as the day I almost caught Captain Blue Jack Sparrow. I'm super busy, so I just ignored him and went straight to the next gym. Flannery uses exclusively fire types, likes to set up Sun, and all of her Pokemon have incredibly hard-hitting attacks like Lava Plume and Overheat, so I feel like this could be a rough match. I've got what I think is a clever strategy, so let's just see if it works. I challenge her and lead off with Misa into her Slugma, and on turn 1, I go for a taunt since the Slug really loves to set up Sunny Day and Light Screen, and I call the turn right as the Slug fails to move at all. Next turn, I use Double Team to raise my evasion, which I hate relying on but feels super appropriate for this battle. The Slug goes for a strong Overheat, dropping Misa to right above half health, and on the next turn, I click Spite, robbing the Slug of its last 4 Overheat PP and revealing my Galaxy Brain strategy. Step 1 of my plan is successful. Misa keeps using Double Team while the Slug sets up Sunny Days, Light Screens, and gets in some chip damage here or there with Rock Throw until I finally curse it to death with a couple of hexes. Flannery sends out her Torkoal, and on the first turn of it being on the field, I hit it with a soft hex since the Light Screen is still up, and it misses an Overheat because of my evasion boosts, and that is checkmate. I spite the Tortoise on the next turn, once again robbing it of its last Overheat PP, and now it can do nothing to hurt me since the only other attack it knows is Body Slam. I take it out over the next few turns with hexes, bringing out her final Pokemon Numel. I switch into Light as it just sets up a Sunny Day, then a fake out for some chip damage into a single dig are enough to crush this baby camel, earning me my 4th badge. Our evasion strategy is super fun and great? No, but don't lie and say that using evasion to dodge an inaccurate attack and then spiting away the rest of its PP wasn't absolutely fire, because I think it was. Sure, it's a little RNG dependent, but as I always say, I would rather be lucky than good. We don't really get a breather at all, so it's straight to the next gym to fight my dad. You would think that this gym battle might not be hard since he only uses normal types, but surprise, every single one of his Pokemon uses Feint Attack, which is a dark type attack that never misses, so I can't even use evasion strats to cheese this battle. To top it all off, 2 of his Pokemon have the stats of gods. Even if they loaf around every other turn, it looks not so great for me because they can just one-shot a large majority of my team. But once again, I feel like I have the solution. I challenge Dad and lead off with Ryuk into his first slacking, and on turn 1, Ryuk gets outsped and yawned, then uses Power Up Punch for an attack boost. On the next turn, while slacking is loafing around, I click Dig to go underground, and then at the end of the turn, I fall asleep, but my Chesto Berry wakes me up immediately. From this point on, I am in a loop where I can always dig on the loafing turn so that I am underground on the active turn. I eventually get the slacking low so Norman heals it, but we just end up in the same loop and I am able to take the monster out with a final power-up punch. Vigoroth comes out next, and instead of doing anything reasonable, it encores me into power-up punch, letting me take it out in one shot. Norman sends out his final slacking, and since I'm still at full health, I don't even go down to most critical hit feint attacks. So we punch once on the active turn and then once again on the loafing turn, and Ryuk has just dumpstered my dad's entire team. Looks like I'm my own dad from now on. With the 5th badge, we can now finally surf, so I go grab a temporary surf buddy, hit the ocean, and start hunting for my next encounter. This hunt goes pretty smoothly, and it only takes a couple episodes of Stranger Things and a little over 100 encounters, but finally, I find a shiny Frillish. It's the female Frillish, which is objectively worse in both design and color, but I'm still stoked to use this Pokemon, as now I have a pretty solid defensive piece on my team, which is something that I was severely lacking. I catch her and name her Kiyomi. Now that I have my permanent surfer, I can move on, and this is the part of the game where Steven shows up looking hella cool and then just gives you one of the random Laddie twins, which is neat, but I can't use this garbage, so it's kind of pointless for me. It will make a dope HM mule though. The Weather Institute is where the story takes us to next, and this is mostly uneventful except for one thing. Do you see it? Take a second. Yeah, there are magma grunts in my Alpha Sapphire game. So here's the thing. I'm not 100% sure if this is the cause, but from the start of the game to up to the Rock Sand battle, I was playing Omega Ruby just because I played Alpha Sapphire last and I didn't think there were any version exclusive ghosts. Wrong. Sableye is a Sapphire exclusive, and I didn't realize that until mapping out how my encounters were gonna go after the first gym. So since I spent 5+ hours hunting for a Phantom, I just decided to use my Omega Ruby save in an Alpha Sapphire game, and I guess these were the consequences? It's kinda weird to see, and definitely my fault for not doing better research before starting, but like I said in my last video, you should probably just count on me to fuck up often. Anyway, we heck up the goons in the Weather Institute and move on. As we're trying to progress to the next gym, Mate ambushes us, but this fight isn't super scary, so we'll just speedrun it for time. Misa hexes her Shroomish into an early grave, and then Kiyomi drowns her Slugma and Marshtomp while in the rain. Clean fight. Now it's time for the 6th gym, but first, I have to go talk to Steven on the bridge. This really isn't relevant to the fight, he just gives us some goggles so we can see chameleons, but he looks so cool doing it, so I'll include it. With my rebranded Sylph Scope, I make my way to Winona, and I learned in this playthrough that with some good timing, you don't actually have to fight any of her gym trainers. Fun fact. I challenge her and lead off with Light into her Swellow, and in the name of consistency, I start off the battle with a dope fake out to get some chip damage and a flinch. On the next turn, I take a soft Aerial Ace, and Rock Tomb drops the chicken into the red. This causes Winona to heal her chicken on the next turn, but a crit Rock Tomb just takes it out. Light levels up mid-battle and learns Power Gym, which is actually insane timing. Winona sends out her Altaria, and since it doesn't know Dragon Dance like it did in the 3rd gen, it's honestly not super threatening. We trade attacks back and forth for a while, both of us healing off damage with roosts and recovers, but we eventually get to a spot where the Altaria starts the turn in the green, and since I now outspeed it because of the Rock Tomb drops, we can take out the Toucan on the next turn with the Power Gem. Skarmory comes out next, so I start by lowering its speed with a Rock Tomb while taking a soft Steel Wing, and on the next turn I recover up to almost full health as the pigeon misses a second Steel Wing. I click Power Gem to scale damage, and it doesn't do a ton. So on the next turn I switch into Misa taking a Steel Wing, and I have taught her Charge Beam for this exact situation. From this spot, Misa will outspeed the rest of Winona's team, and Charge Beam drops the Steel Pigeon in one shot, forcing Winona to send out her African Grey Parrot Pelipper. She already knows the battle is over, but tries to stall a turn with Protect in hopes that I'll misclick on the next turn, but I don't. We fry the parrot with another Charge Beam, earning ourselves the 6th badge, and we're still deathless in this run, which is wild. Super strong performance from the Spooky Boys. With most of the map unlocked now, we can finally hunt for the Ghost Duo from the Hoenn region. I start by hunting for a shiny Shuppet on Route 121, and it's a pretty straightforward hunt that I actually find pretty quickly with just under a 100 Dex Nav chain. I catch him and name him L. In Mount Pyre, I start another hunt and I get ultra spoon-fed here, finding the Duskull that I'm looking for with a chain of only 28. Insane odds on that one, even with the boosted rates. I catch her and name her Naomi. While traveling up Mount Pyre for another Piss Baby fight, Elle evolves into Banette, and now I have to decide if I'm gonna allow myself to use Megas or not in this run. Really tough decision. We make our way to the top of Mount Pyre where Blue Jack Sparrow is stealing some balls, and he just leaves this absolute mountain of a man to fight us. I understand that this is a game and suspension of disbelief and all that. Sure, I get it, but this dude could pick me up and break me in half. I'll never get over that. We don't have to Pokemon battle because this guy could just lay me out, but he decides not to do that. He has a Sharpedo, which sounds terrifying, but it doesn't have any dark type moves, so it's an easy win for us. After the battle and a little bit of grinding, both Naomi and Kiyomi evolve into Dusclops and Jellicent respectively, which is great because now I have some insanely bulky pieces to work with, especially Dusclops since it gets the Eviolite buff. May ambushes us once again in Lily Cove City, but with our new powered up team, it's not even really hard to pivot around her anymore. Light power gems her Swellow into an early grave, Swampert is hard walled and picked off by Ryuk, Macargo is ultra walled and drowned by Kiyomi, and her Breloom is stopped dead in its tracks by the majority of my team, specifically Ryuk, who is immune or resists both of its stabs. We have the pieces to cover most holes roles in the team at this point, so only specific types like Dark or Ghost are really scary for us. Now this is the part of the game where, much like every other Pokemon game, the evil team of the region starts enacting their master plan. Don't worry, it won't come to fruition until after the 7th badge, but it has to start right now for plot purposes. So we follow the Piss Babies back to Slateport, they steal a submarine, then we follow them right back to Lily Cove, infiltrate their secret lair, and this insane moment happens in a 5v1 battle. Just watch this. We have to fight a horde of grunts who all use Poochyena. No big deal. I switch into Kiyomi and get sand attacked one time. My accuracy is dropped one stage. Then on the following turn I surf and I only connect on one little hyena dog puppy thing? One? What are the odds on that? Don't get me wrong, this fight is easy and I dumpster every single one of these Poochyena, but I thought that this was wild and I just wanted to show you. After that insane 5v1 fight, we have to fight the mountain of a man, Admin Matt, again, and it's a super easy fight because his Sharpedo still doesn't know a dark type move, but after we beat him, he starts talking about how much he wants to kiss Blue Jack Sparrow, and honestly, just be open about it, dude. It's Pride Month, baby. Embrace yourself. Love is love. No, but really, this is obviously a bit, but I mean all of those things, and if you have a problem with that, I probably don't want you in my community. Moving on. With that slight detour over, we can head to the next gym, and listen, this is probably the most dumbed down fight in these games. Tate and Liza have so much potential since it's a double battle, and the psychic type could be really strong here, but they just have Solrock and Lunatone. That's it. I lead off with Kiyomi and Naomi into the astrology signs, and on the first turn, well, actually, I expected to outspeed and get a double KO on the first turn with Surf plus Shadow Sneak, but instead I'm outsped and the sun sets up a sunny day and the moon sets up a light screen, so Surf does basically nothing. Okay, touche twins. On the next turn I Shadow Sneak the Lunatone again with Naomi, and I switch Kiyomi out into Ryuk, predicting a Solar Beam from the Solrock. I call the turn correctly and Ryuk takes a light tap from the Sunstone, but a pretty strong Psychic from the Moonstone, putting him in range to eat his Citrus Berry. A Hornleech plus a Shadow Sneak causes a solar eclipse on the very next turn as the twins just heal their Moonrock up, but we cause a lunar eclipse on the next turn with the same combination of moves. Okay, so I will admit the sunny day plus light screen was pretty cool, but imagine if they had a full team. This battle could be nuts. Anyway, since we earned the 7th badge, it's now time for the evil team's plans to come to a head and force me, a child, to save the world when their plans go terribly wrong. So I make my way to an underwater cavern, and I'm here trying to stop the Piss Babies from summoning a demon, I think. This part of the game culminates into my final battle with Blue Jack Sparrow, and his team is actually cracked. I challenge him leading off with Kiyomi into his Mightyena, and a Dazzling Gleam on the first turn almost one-shots the puppy as it just uses Scary Face. On the next turn, he goes for a Taunt, of all things, and Kiyomi drowns him with a Surf. Sparrow sends out Muck, so I switch into L on a Screech, and let's be honest, I decided the moment I caught Sableye that I was going to be using Mega Evolutions this run because the Mega Ghosts are some of my favorites. So I Mega Evolve Banette and use Phantom Force to disappear and dodge Muck's Skunk Shot, and when L comes back to attack, it's a clean one-shot because this Pokemon has one of the highest attack stats in the game. Crobat comes out next, and since I have a lower defense stat from the Screech, I switch into Naomi, who is insanely bulky with Eviolite. She chews through a couple acrobatics like their gum, burns the bat with a Will-O-Wisp, and then I can safely switch back out into L and take out the purple People Eater with a Phantom Force. This forces Blue Jack Sparrow to send out his ace Sharpedo, and knowing it is about to Mega Evolve, I switch into Ryuk, who I've given a Colbur Berry. The shark Megas and goes to take a bite out of me, and even through my berry, which reduces the damage by 50%, this does an insane amount of damage, easily enough to two-shot. So I guess this is what Grim meant when he said to watch out for sharks. I misplayed here because I didn't set Mega Sharpedo's ability to Strong Jaw when I was running calculations, and now I'm in a super rough spot since I can't take another hit even though I harvested my berry. Thinking on my feet, I switch into Light, who takes about 65% from a single crunch, and on the next turn, I go for Will-O-Wisp with boosted priority thanks to Prankster, which hasn't been nerfed in this generation to not hit dark types, and it connects. The shark lands another crunch, which drops me to just 10 HP. Knowing I'm risking crits here, I use recover on the next 2 turns so that Light is over half health. On the 3rd turn, I switch into Naomi, who takes a crunch pretty well, and on the following turn, I take another crunch to just 14 HP, and I go for Rock Smash that is only on her moveset because it was required to navigate through this cave. The burn drops the shark to what has to be 2 or 3 hit points, and on the next turn, a Shadow Sneak is enough to pick up the kill, meaning I got through this nightmare fight deathless. Despite the gentleman's agreement we had, Pirate of the Hoenn Seas still summons his demon, and now it's going to drown the entire planet. So I have to go clean up his mess and fight the water demon. Yeah, cool. So I ride Kyogre down into the depths of the planet and then let Ryuk devour its soul with a couple of horn leeches. He did almost die to a crit origin pulse, but we made it out alive. With the water demon dead, I've saved the world, and now I can go back to doing more important things, like getting badges. Before I do challenge the final gym leader though, there is a ton of content unlocked now and a ton of new encounters. I won't use them all, but I'm a little bit of a completionist, so I like to hunt for them anyway, so buckle up. I start off by going to see Mauville and soft resetting for Spiritomb. The way you encounter this thing is pretty convoluted, but it's also pretty chill as far as soft resets go, and it has a sick shiny. It only took a couple of hours for me to find this shiny teal ghost, and I immediately masterballed this creep because it knows Memento, and I don't want it to unalive itself. I named her Sayu. After that, I found the substitute TM on a Mirage Island, which is huge for one of my Elite Four strategies, so big win there. Then I hunted for and found shiny Kofagrigus in another Mirage spot, Drifloon while soaring in the skies on Latios, and finally Snorunt in the basement of Shoal Cave. The Kofagrigus and Snorunt hunts only took a couple of hours total, but the Drifloon hunt took close to 4 hours because soaring encounters are slow as hell, and I swear Drifloon must be the rarest one. I almost gave up. I cried during this hunt. Not because the hunt was particularly bad, but I watched that episode of Stranger Things. It's the one with Max. You know it if you've seen it. It's in the new season. I'm not gonna spoil it, but man, that episode's really emotional. It got me. I named the Kofagrigus Sachiko, the Snorunt Weddy, and the Drifloon Nier. Then, as if this wasn't enough, I evolved Misa into Miss Magius, Weddy into Frostlass, and Drifloon into Drifblim. Okay, I think those are all of the shiny ghosts you can get in this game. It's time to beat it. So the final gym leader is Wallace. He uses a mono fish and aquatic life team. It can sometimes be a little scary, so I went into the tank and came out with an intense strategy. Here's what I came up with. I challenge Wallace and lead off with Light into his Love Disc, and from here, it's GG. No, seriously, this dude leads off with one of the worst Pokemon in the game. What did you expect? Okay, seriously, on turn 1, I Mega Evolved mostly for the Magic Bounce ability, which allowed me to bounce back a Sweet Kiss and an Attract. This fish might be terrible, but both of those attacks make it a nuisance to deal with sometimes. From this spot, I just set up Calm Minds because my entire goal for this fight was just to show off how insanely good Mega Sableye is. It is truly the perfect pivot, the perfect defensive piece, and the perfect setup Pokemon for a run like this. It was one of my favorite Pokemon to use competitively for all of Gen 6. Also, it's holding a big ass gym, and that's rad as hell. I get some arbitrarily high special attack and defense boosts, then I flush Wallace's entire team down the drain one by one. We should probably take a moment of silence for his fallen fish, but honestly, I don't have time for that. We've earned all 8 badges with only shiny ghosts, and we've done it with 0 deaths. One final challenge stands in our way, so it's time to head to Victory Road. The cave is pretty tame, but on the other side, we run into Wally for one final fight. He's been a pushover this entire run, but this is kind of his comeback arc since he has an actual team now. He challenges me, and I lead off with Kiyomi into his Altaria. We take a soft Dragon Pulse on turn 1, but crack back with an Ice Beam that leaves the Cloudbird with just a sliver of health and freezes it, allowing us to take it out for free on the next turn. Wally sends in Roselia, so I switch into Nier as it misses a Leech Seed, and on the next turn I set up a substitute as the Rose tries to Leech Seed again, causing it to fail. 2 Shadow Balls mow the Rose down, so he sends in some Magnets, and I'm unsure how they work, so I stay in and click Shadow Ball as the Magnets break my sub with a Discharge. I sub again, which drops me below half health, causing me to eat my Citrus Berry, which also triggers Unburden, doubling my speed, and doubles the power of Acrobatics. Berries have really been a staple of this run. Wally just uses Screech, which is a bad play. I demagnetize his magnets on the next turn, so he sends in this cat, and 2 acrobatics are enough to KO it. It does manage to break my sub with the crit feint attack. Wally sends out his ace Gallade, who will Mega Evolve, but I am sure I will grab the 1-hit KO with acrobatics, so I stay in and click it. I in fact do not grab the 1-shot with acrobatics, and Wally retaliates by doing absolutely nothing. This was your shot, dude. My balloon was at -2 defense from Screech, but you just used Swords Dance? Wally, you're bad. I take out his Power Ranger thing on the next turn, winning the fight and unlocking the Elite Four. With that fight out of the way, it's time to plan. So after thinking about it long and hard, this is the team I will be using for the Elite Four. It's just Ren. I'm not even going to get her to the level cap. She's fine. She's got this. Okay, I lied. This is the actual team I will be taking. L, Ryuk, Light, Nier, Weddy, and Kiyomi. I think this gives me the best variety of types and different roles. Spiritomb kind of does a little bit of everything, but I don't think I need 2 Ghost Dark types for the Elite Four, and Light has the ability to Mega Evolve and a recovery move, both of which are super valuable here. Misa was the hardest to cut because I love Miss Magius, but I decided Weddy just gives me better coverage and fits the team better as a fast special attacker. Stab Ice Beam is just nuts, and she also gives me another Ice Resist, which will be super clutch for the Glacia fight. Both Dusclops and Kofagrigus are bulky ghost types, and they both do basically the same thing. They're both very strong, but they don't have built-in recovery like Ryuk or Kiyomi, and honestly, any one of my Pokemon can do the whole Toxic Will-O-Wisp plus Hex thing if that's something that I wanted or needed. Those are my reasons. This is the team I'm taking in. Let me know what team you would have brought, but with that out of the way, let's go win this run. Sydney is up first, and while normally he is the easiest member to beat, I actually think he'll be one of the hardest this time since he has just dark types. But I have an okay-ish strategy for him, maybe? I lead off with Nier into his Mightyena, and immediately I forgot this thing has Intimidate, because most Mightyenas you fight in the game do not, so not off to a great start. I go for a sub on turn 1, which was another misplay. I assumed this thing would outspeed me and get off at Swagger first, making me eat my berry, but it did not, so now I'm at -1 attack and behind a sub with my berry still intact. Not a good start. I go for an acrobatics, but the puppy outpaces with a priority sucker punch and breaks my sub, then acro does very little. On the next turn I misclicked because I wasn't using my stylus, like I always do, and I locked into Shadow Ball instead of Substitute. So this fight is just off the rails. I take an ultra hard hitting sucker punch, and now my entire strategy has been foiled in basically 3 turns. I switch Nier into L, causing sucker punch to miss, and on the next turn I Mega Evolve and go for a Prankster Will-O-Wisp, causing it to miss again. With the puppy burned and out of Sucker Punch PP, I switch back into Nier, predicting a Swagger since the AI seems to really prioritize going for status moves in situations like this, and I call it right. Nier gets to +2 attack for free thanks to his Persimberry and doubles his speed. With Mightyena burned and in the red, Sydney will always heal, so I go for an acro and it just one-shots the hyena or wolf, I'm not sure. No one really knows. Sharpedo comes out next, and an acro is once again a clean one-shot, but I take rough skin damage that I completely forgot about, and I was terrified that this was going to KO me. Nier lives, but he's insanely low. Absol and Shiftry both fall to +2 acrobatics, forcing Sydney out into his last Pokemon, Cacturn. And since this Pokemon can Spiky Shield, I baton pass my boosts into Ryuk. We take a soft payback, get chipped from a Spiky Shield, but after that, a single +2 Phantom Force is enough to pick up the KO here, because even though it's resisted, Cacturn's defenses are dog water. Okay, yeesh. That was touch and go because I did not play well, but with some clever recovery, we made it through. Next up is Phoebe, who uses only ghost types, another incredibly difficult type for us to take on, but at least this time I'll also have the ability to hit for super effective damage. I challenge her and lead off with L into her Dusclops. On the first turn, I Mega Evolve and go for a Phantom Force, which just claims the Dusclops' soul on the next turn. She sends in her Sableye, and this thing knows Foul Play, which would use my own attack stat against me, so I absolutely cannot stay in. I switch into Light, who is the superior Sableye because he shines, and he takes a light tap from Foul Play. On the following turn, I hit her inferior Ghost with a Will-O-Wisp, taking another light tap, then I Shadow Ball as it pivots to using Power Gem. I have Light recover on the next turn to stay healthy, which was a little miscalculated. I could have just taken her Sableye out, but I didn't, and the burn drops it into the red, meaning Phoebe will full restore on the following turn. She does, and I Shadow Ball again, but this time I get the special defense drop, meaning my next Shadow Ball is always a kill, never punish. punished. So we claim another lost soul. She sends out her first Banette, and I Shadow Ball it into the red as it hits me with a Will-O-Wisp, burning me. Phoebe uses her second full restore as I foul play her possessed puppet back down to the red. Next turn, I click recover to stay healthy, but I take a pretty hard Shadow Ball, which paired with the burn takes me to just above half health. A Shadow Ball drops Banette A on the next turn, bringing out Banette B as I drop to under half health. Light recovers on the first turn, but Banette's Shadow Ball just does too much damage for me to continue out healing it along with the burn. So I switch into Ryuk, taking about 40% from the first Shadow Ball, and kind of mindlessly click substitute here, not thinking about it, and the follow-up Shadow Ball drops me to just 8 HP. But thankfully, this triggers my Citrus Berry, letting me get a substitute off. A Phantom Force on the following turn lets my sub get broken, but then allows me to one-shot Banette B. Down to just her ace, Dusknoir, I switch into L knowing I can always live one Hex, which I take about 40% from, and a Phantom Force on the next turn is enough to clean up the fight and absorb the last lost soul. Okay, so the first two Elite Four members were pretty rough, but it has to get easier, right? Well, no. Glacia is next, and she's a nightmare. I have a cool plan to try and pass some boosts with Nier, but let's see how I can mess it up. I lead off with Nier into her Glalie and go for substitute on the first turn, which immediately gets broken by Crunch. Okay, not what I expected. Normally this thing starts with Hail. Over the next two turns, I set up Calm Minds as the Glalie then goes for Hail and Light Screen. I baton pass my boosts into Weddy, who immediately gets crunched and her defense dropped. So knowing she will die on the next turn, it's back out into Nier, who drops below half health and eats his Citrus Berry. I set up another Calm Mind and take another crunch down to just 46 health. I then realize I can't even pass this boost because Glalie has Ice Shard and I'm playing like a toddler. So I hard switch into Ryuk, who snacks on the shard thanks to his Yachi Berry. Ryuk starts doing sub plus Leech Seed shenanigans until I can take the Glalie out with the Horn Leech. Glalie sends out Frostlass while I'm still behind a sub, so I stay in and Horn Leech it down to low red. Instead of staying in and Horn Leeching again, knowing Glacia will heal her Frostlass up, I switch out to Kiyomi, starting an endless cycle of dumb. I won't go turn by turn here because it sucks, but here's the short version. Frostlass confuses Kiyomi anytime she's not confused. It sets up Hail anytime Hail is not up, giving it an evasion boost. I hit myself a confusion or miss multiple attacks, letting it whittle me down, forcing me to recover several times just to stay healthy, and I never once get a Scald Burn. To be fair, I do get 2 cursed body triggers, and Frostlass never gets an Omni boost from Ominous Wind, so small victories. Eventually, I get the Frostlass down to the red, and I'm able to finally take it out with a Dazzling Gleam that should have 100% been a Shadow Ball for this fight. I just forgot to replace it. She sends out her second Frostlass, and I take a hard Shadow Ball from it and then try to recover to stay healthy, but this is not a favorable exchange for me. I switch into Light on the following turn, taking a soft Shadow Ball, and then go for a Shadow Ball of my own that I hope will KO, but I get frozen by a Blizzard instead, making it impossible for me to move. Fantastic. I'm forced to switch into Weddy to resist her next Blizzard, and now I just have to roll the dice. I have to outpace, and my Shadow Ball needs to one-shot here, so I lock in, and not only are we faster, but Shadow Ball actually manages to pick up the kill, which is a massive relief. Glacia sends out her ace, Walrein, but she has no moves to hit Kiyomi super effectively, so even though Walrein manages to freeze me, I can thaw with Scald and chip it down slowly while staying healthy with Recover. Her last Pokemon is a Glalie with Freeze Dry, so I switch into Ryuk, and over the course of several turns, I'm able to keep harvesting my Yachi Berry and take it out with a couple of Horn Leeches. It took longer than it needed to because she kept protecting, but that's honestly fine because it gave me more time to harvest my berry over and over again. We're done with this battle and somehow still have 0 deaths. The final Elite Four member is Drake, and he has a team of terrifyingly powerful dragons, but I have some shiny dead stuff, so I'm not super worried about it. I challenge him and lead off with Nier into his Altaria. I decide that since he wants to lead with his weak link, I might as well abuse it. This Altaria can do very little, so I set up a substitute, start using Calm Mind, and then pass all of those boosts over to Weddy with a baton pass. This fight is the biggest reason I chose Weddy over Misa for the Elite Four team, and she justifies my choice by one-shotting Drake's entire team from behind a sub. I probably didn't need to pass the boosts, but after those last 3 fights, I was Mondo burnt out of the Elite Four and a little on edge, so I just wanted a surefire sweep and I wanted wanted to dumpster somebody, and that's exactly what we got. Now with the entire Elite Four in shambles, I head into my last fight of the run versus Steven, and even though he looks hella cool, I have to destroy him. So with everything ready, and my party healed, I challenge him. I lead off with L into his Skarmory, and on turn 1, I Mega Evolve and taunt the bird to prevent it from setting up spikes. L isn't great against Skarm because of its massive physical defense, so on the next turn I switch into Nier, taking a soft hit. Over the next 2 turns, I take a few hits that drop me below half health, letting me eat my Citrus Berry while I set up Calm Minds. I go for a Shadow Ball that drops the Skarmory to low red, and it uses Toxic since its taunt wears off. On the next turn, I use Sub as Steven heals his bird, then I baton pass my boosts and Sub to Weddy. She comes in and takes a Steel Wing that breaks her Sub, but I should always live another one, so I Ice Beam, taking the bird down to its sturdy, and it just Toxics me in response. Next turn, I fry the Steel Turkey with a Thunderbolt, so Steven sends in his Aggron. Weddy is already on a timer, and I can't take a hit from Aggron ever, so I switch into Ryuk, taking a Stone Edge for about a quarter of my health. On the next turn, Aggron gets off a super strong Iron Tail, dropping Ryuk to below half health and proccing my Citrus Berry as I set up Leech Seeds. From this spot, it's the standard Sub Protect stalling to whittle down the Aggron until I have to switch into Kiyomi, who dodges an Iron Tail on the way in, and then outpaces and takes out the Aggron with a Shadow Ball. Credilli comes out next for Steven, and I realize in this moment I did not put Scald back on Kiyomi's moveset, leaving Ice Beam from the Drake fight, which is a massive bummer. I try Ice Beam once just to scale damage, but a Giga Drain in response makes it not worth the exchange. I fish for a special defense drop on the next turn with a Shadow Ball, but we do not get lucky. So I switch into Light on a soft Ancient Power, and on the next turn I burn the Credilli as it confuses me. I pivot into Ryuk to take a Giga Drain, and then take it out with a Shadow Claw as I harvest my berry back. Claydol comes out next, and knowing this Pokemon can't do a ton, I set up Leech Seeds as it goes for a Reflect, then pivot into Light since Claydol basically has to use a Psychic move here. I miss a Will-O-Wisp on the next turn, but realize Claydol is now attacking with Earth Power since Light is immune to Psychic, so I switch into Nier to abuse my immunity and convince the AI to attack instead of set up another Reflect since Nier is low enough to KO. Using this to my advantage, I double switch into L, taking only a soft hit. Steven uses another full restore on his Claydol, fully healing it, but L drops it to under half with a Shadow Sneak and takes it out with a second one on the next turn. Armaldo is the penultimate Pokemon we have to beat to win this run, so I switch into Trevenant and take a critical hit X Scissor to under half, but once again, my Citrus Berry saves me. I set up Leech Seeds and then switch into Light, who also takes a pretty hard X Scissor, but shrugs it off thanks to the Seed recovery. Light is able to burn the bug on the following turn with a Will-O-Wisp, and with all of this setup in place, I switch back into L, who takes nothing from the burned Armaldo, and pick it off with a Shadow Sneak, forcing out Steven's ace, Metagross. This Pokemon is beyond busted, but unless it crits me, I should always be able to live one hit here. On its first turn, it Mega Evolves as I go for a Prankster Will-O-Wisp, which connects. Meteor Mash lands, taking me to under half health, but Metagross doesn't get the attack boost. It's all or nothing now. I lock into Phantom Force as the Metagross outpaces and connects another Meteor Mash, but L manages to live on 8 HP. He then disappears into what I can only assume is the underworld, dodging Metagross's next attack, then reappearing behind him to remove his soul from his metal shell. And with that, we've beaten Steven and the run. This is the first and probably only time I will ever have a zero death run, and it feels amazing. While you might think that's because my team is so busted since I chained most of them, I think it really came down to good planning, doing well under pressure when things went wrong, and a little bit of luck here and there, which I'm fine with. I will take the luck any day. All in all, this run was a blast. Ghosts are great, and I got to use so many dope Pokemon that I've never really used. Who knew Mega Banette was so cracked? Who knew that Harvest was such a cool ability? Those are things you just don't get to see often, and I loved them. I don't even know if I could pick an MVP in this run since so many of my team members put in work, but if you had to, who would you pick? I'm genuinely curious. Thank you once again for all the support on these videos. It means the world to me. And if you want to help me hit 50K on YouTube by my birthday, which is coming up July 31st, please consider subscribing. And if you enjoy these videos and the effort that goes into them, please leave a like because it helps out a ton. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm kind of done here and I have to leave. Bye.